Hey, how's it going, everybody? 12 days of Christmas movies rolling on. The penultimate episode. Oh, we're so close. It's almost Christmas. Can you feel it? Can you feel it inside? Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies to watch around the holiday season, around Christmas Eve especially. I usually try to save it for Christmas Eve. Had to jump ahead of the line a little bit just to do these videos, but normally I like to watch it like Christmas Eve, that morning, maybe the nighttime. That's 1988's Scrooged. The film is directed by Richard Donner, written by Mitch Glazer, Michael O'Donoghue, and others. It stars Bill Murray, Karen Allen, John Forsythe, John Glover, Bobcat Goldthwait, David Johansen, Carol Kane, Robert Mitchum, Nicholas Phillips, Michael J. Pollard, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: a selfish, cynical television executive is haunted by three spirits bearing lessons on Christmas Eve. So yeah, it's a Christmas Carol. It's a updated Christmas Carol with kind of a little bit of a darker tinge, although I suppose you could make the argument that A Christmas Carol itself is a little bit of a darker story anyways. So it kind of fits. And it's got a unique kind of tone to it. I don't know if the whole movie works, honestly. I think there are things that happen by the end of the movie, I would even argue, that are a little unearned, like Bill Murray's kind of emotional arc when he comes to a realization. It kind of comes at the 11th hour. And it's not because the final push comes at the end, when he sees himself being in a coffin, being put into a fire to be cremated. It's kind of when he really wakes up. He's like, oh, I'm alive, I'm alive. There wasn't usually you would think they were planting seeds of his disillusionment with himself as he's going through the process, because if you're familiar with A Christmas Carol or Scrooge or any of the other variations on the story, generally he starts to soften up as the story goes. It's not necessarily like the ghost of Christmas Future is like the one that really drives it home. But in this one, it kind of does. Other negative aspects before we get into everything I love about the movie is I think the romance between Karen Allen and Bill Murray is not very well executed or earned. But 'tis the season, it's a Christmas movie. You kind of got to grade it a little bit on a curve. And I think at the end of the day, in terms of the message of the Christmas message, the spirit of the holidays, all that kind of stuff, this movie has it in spades. And in fact, I would say the closing monologue for Scrooged, Bill Murray's closing monologue, is one of my favorite Christmas movie moments ever. He really hits the nail on the head in terms of what it is about and how easy it is to get lost in just cynicism and being shitty and kind of losing yourself a little bit. And if Christmas is good for anything, if it's good for fucking anything, it is to remind you for a day or two just to be a little bit nicer to the people around you. Just make the world a little bit better through osmosis, through that. And I always really appreciated that. And I really got to me this year too. I even got a little misty-eyed while I was watching it the other night. So it's a comedy classic. I love the tone. I love the atmosphere. I love Danny Elfman's weird Danny Elfman score that he does. Feels very, Tim Burton-esque. It does even kind of has that, and this is before he was really working a lot with Tim Burton, so this would have been around, Beetlejuice and Pee-wee's in the Pee Wee Herman movie. So probably more akin to something like that, but it does feel like even the way the movie's stylized aesthetically, even feels like it's pulling a little bit from kind of a Burton-esque world. Although, maybe more at the time, though, more like Joe Dante. It has a very similar tone and kind of execution as Gremlins 2. If you've ever seen that. John Glover's in both that. He's in this movie. He's also in Gremlins 2. But it kind of reminded me of that. That's the kind of the slapsticky dark humor that I think both of those movies actually pull off really well. Bill Murray is a great stand-in for Ebenezer Scrooge. He does a great job with his character. Frank Cross. Granted, it's a Bill Murray character, and he's just like in every Bill Murray movie, he's playing kind of himself, which is what you want. You don't want him to be playing some crazy character, some crazy accents or anything. No, kind of just like spending time with Bill Murray and his sardonic, dry humor. It's all there. Nails it. Does a great version. The only thing I would say is a little bit is that I think some of being able to bring nuance to what was happening with his character throughout the movie is maybe where he's lacking a little bit. But I will say this, at the end of the movie, like the final moments of the film when he's delivering the monologue and he's all that stuff, like he does show that he has some dramatic chops. Like it's a very earnest and powerful moment, and powerful performance, which is not something you would expect from Bill Murray, maybe especially in 1988, you know. Later on in his career, obviously, he does become a better actor. He becomes better at that stuff. You know, if you look at what he did with Sofia Coppola and, you know, Lost in Translation, or Jim Jarmusch with Broken Flowers, like he's really come a long way as an actor, from where he started as kind of the goofball, kind of the witty, sarcastic goofball. And I think he straddles that line very nicely. You could definitely start seeing the evolution of his character. Obviously, you have the three ghosts, you know. Carol Kane, Ghost of Christmas Present, probably the most memorable. Although David Johansen from, the New York Dolls, also Dieter Poindexter, because he likes it hot, 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 which is, what does he play? I was just looking for his name. Yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Past. Just making sure it's the right person. David Johansen, yeah. Yeah, David Johansen had such a weird career, starting as like kind of glam punk, the New York Dolls in like the late 60s. That became like kind of a pop star with Dieter Poindexter, and then became kind of a movie star in kind of a lot of mainstream comedies. Isn't he in Car 54, Where Are You? And he did a bunch of other stuff. I remember just seeing him all the time when I was a kid. What are they? Is he in Kick-Ass? No, that's the soundtrack. That's the soundtrack, dog. He's still working to this day. He was in A Very Merry Christmas from a few years ago. Yeah, Sofia Coppola did a Christmas variety special or something like that for Netflix. It's not very good. I didn't really like it. Yeah. Good old Dieter Poindexter there. David Johansen. Good stuff. Good stuff. Bobcat Goldthwait. Awesome. Classic performance. It was a time where like these people were just cast to kind of be themselves, or be whatever the archetype of something they'd be in movies. A little bit typecast, I suppose you could say. But I think they slot everybody into their roles really well. Richard Donner directs this. Now, Richard Donner, if you don't know, you know, mostly famous for the Lethal Weapon movies, I guess, later in his career. But before that, I mean, this guy's got a slew of classics, from Superman, The Omen, Lady Hawk. Last movie he made was 16 Blocks. That's a bummer to go out on that movie. But he's made some of my favorites: Conspiracy Theory, Scrooged, Lady Hawk, yeah, The Toy. What else? Lots of stuff. Radio Flyer, Maverick, Assassins. Come on now. The great Dick Donner. But he's like one of these really great, kind of like workman-like directors, but maybe has a little bit more personality. Like there's a little bit more of a personal touch to it, but just barely. But he just knows how to like put together a good movie. Just put together a script. Put together a sequence of events that play out in a sensible manner. I've always been a big fan of Dick Donner. Someday I want to talk about all the Lethal Weapon movies with somebody. That would be fun, because those are childhood favorites. But I was actually, whenever I see that Dick Donner directed this, I am a little like taken aback. I'm like, oh wow, because it does not read like a Dick Donner movie. And I think maybe if it does have maybe another flaw, is that the personality of the movie comes mostly from the characters. I mean, mostly from the actors that they cast. His direction's pretty rote. Like, it's pretty just simple, basic direction. Isn't a lot of like flair there. And I think if you had maybe somebody with a slightly stronger sensibility, even say if you took Tim Burton, a young Tim Burton from the 80s, and you gave him Scrooged, I think he probably hits a home run. Where Donner, it does feel like a little like undercooked from a director standpoint, in my opinion. But having said that, like I said, I still really love this movie. It's I'll probably end up watching it again tonight. Honestly, I probably will. Because it's something you only watch it like once or twice a year. So there's been a few years where I skipped Scrooge, but I always regret it. And for some reason, like, I will not watch it outside of the Christmas season. It has to be at least December to watch Scrooge. Most Christmas movies I feel that way, but Scrooged especially for some reason. I don't know. I grew up watching it. I've definitely seen, this is the version of A Christmas Carol I've seen more than any others. Even though I think like that there's a 1951 version that's really great of A Christmas Carol. That maybe I'll watch that tonight instead, since I've already watched Scrooged. But that one's, that's a really good classic one. But this one, in terms of you're trying to find something that's a little unorthodox, I suppose, for your Christmas viewing, you've seen all the classics a million times. Why not give Scrooge a shot? Especially if you've never seen Scrooge, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised what like a modern person, a person today in 2020 would think of Scrooge. No matter how old they are. I'm just curious because it feels like there's a lot of cultural stuff that's super dated in Scrooge. There's like lots of pop culture references that just I don't think would land. Which I was kind of surprised this last time I watched it. I was like, wow, there is actually a lot of very like time specific things in this movie. Not just kind of the setting and not just the fact that they're TV executives. It's just like they mention kind of pop culture things that are most millennials probably don't even know, wouldn't even recognize at all. It's kind of crazy. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for Dan's Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for a future daily movie review or semi-daily movie review, whatever we end up doing, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and we'll put it on the list. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. Don't stop believing in Santa Claus.